If you're just joining us, we will get started in a few minutes. So we'll wait for some of our faculty to come in. And by the way, this is not limited to come on in. We're live. If you don't want to be on camera, you can kind of sit over here.
Wherever you want me to sit. Where would you like me to sit?
Anywhere you like. So the live stream is happening, so you can kind of see what the camera sees. It's your call. If you want to be on stream or not on stream. Okay. We have our amazing Wynn Walker, our math professor who just walked in. So this is open to all faculty, whether you're teaching in the classroom, you're counseling faculty, you're working in the library. And the prompt today is going to be, it's the first week of class, and I am thinking about blank. And as we're waiting for people to come in, I'll have to tell a story that I've been teaching 22 years now online and also in ISP. Yeah, go for it. Wynn's just having her lunch here. Feel free, if you're watching at home, have your lunch, have a cup of coffee, have a tequila if that's your thing. But so I've been teaching for about 22 years, and I was trying to think back to when I've taught a face-to-face class. It's been ages. I want to say like 15 years. And so I'm starting a new role, and part of that role is to do some of the stuff that we're doing today, which is workshops for all of you out there. But I'm also teaching our Promise class, which is an exciting new program that we're offering for students. We're giving them a lot of support. And one of the main forms of support is giving them a first-year seminar that takes them through the ropes of what LTCC is all about. If you're taking a class with Dr. Walker, how do you be successful in a math class? If you're taking an English class, how can you be successful writing your papers? And so it's just a different experience for me going back into a face-to-face classroom. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to need a couple weeks just to get caught up on the ropes and just, feeling comfortable again, and just some of the issues that happen when you're teaching physically in a classroom like this, which is E100 here at the college, versus if you're teaching DE, which is typically asynchronous, doesn't involve a lot of live video. And I know there's a conversation out there that maybe we have to think about making some of our classes more synchronous, which is a challenge for you if you're teaching for us part-time DE, because one of the things that's great for you as an instructor and for our students is that sense of flexibility. You can log on at 2 a.m. if you're a night owl. Dr. J.D. Duerk, please come in. We've got our live stream. You can see where the stream is.
Hello.
Hey, we're live.
Hola.
No one wants to be. We have quite a few faculty. Cata just came in. Sara, world language faculty members. If you want to be on camera, you can be more over here. I guess nobody wants to be on camera. So we're live streaming, and if the live stream cuts out, I'm doing a backup recording. And so if you're out there watching, which I don't think anyone's watching yet, we couldn't tell. I tried to get on JD's phone, but it didn't work. It's probably fine. I think we're okay. But it's fine. She was asking about the door, so. We are live, so I know. People watching are probably like, you guys, I'm sorry. So the deal is, if the live stream cuts out, we'll archive this. And again, the focus today, it's our teaching talk. Come on in, Dr. Larry Green. Hey, Larry, you want to sit here? You can be on camera. No? Okay.
Over the camera. Okay. Some people live out of the go see from the side.
Yeah.
Larry, right here. I'll sit back there.
And he's wearing his mathematics t-shirt, just in case we forget which discipline Larry teaches in. It's mathematics. I don't think we'd ever forget.
Need the directions.
Sage. Yeah, need directions. So the format of this is we're getting together to talk about teaching, and again, we have about 8 of us here. Full-time faculty. Hopefully, some of you out there are part-time faculty. Whether you teach counseling, work in the library, teach it in a face-to-face class, ISP, DE. It's an opportunity to get together to just talk about some teaching issues. So the prompt for this is, it's the first week of class, and I am thinking about blank. What is that thing that you are thinking about in the first week of class? And if no one goes, I will. Okay, Behnaz. I'm going to close the door.
Class. It takes a whole quarter to teach them how to study. They just get very low grades. They don't know how to study especially biology and anatomy and physiology. I have to make a meeting with them one-on-one, come to my office, teach them how to save your time, how to manage this, how to study. And then I'm wondering if we can have a course. I used to teach in American River College. They had like a half a unit course to help them to study, to learn how to study, which I didn't teach that course, but I do know that the students after first exam, they take, I had to drop their first exam result to that instructor, and the instructor goes with the student on paper and say, what is wrong? Why did you were not able to answer this question? What happened? And what did you miss? And they changed it, the way they study, and at the end of the course, their grades were much higher. So I've noticed I have to spend lots of time besides anatomy and physiology, just teach students how to study, how to manage your time. So I'm wondering if we can.
I'm teaching that class right now, so I'll talk about that. Welcome, by the way, if you're watching on our livecast, welcome as well, out there in virtual land. So we have a new Promise program at the college that many of you know about, and that Promise program provides financial support and bookstore credit and free transportation. But the thing we're really doing is providing like this undergirding of academic support and counseling support, making linkages between instruction and counseling. So I'm teaching 3 sections of this class, and it's basically a college success class. So we cover everything from financial aid, financial literacy. Next week we're hitting heavy, it's me and Treva presenting. There are a lot of guest speakers in this class. She will cover the DE side of how to be successful as a DE student. I will cover the just general side of classroom and how you can be successful. Many of you in this room, I think everyone, I don't maybe, what discipline do you teach in? Yeah.
I'm public speaking.
Public speaking, great, so welcome. I know many of you in this room who have really high standards, so I think what's going to be key is we're launching a Promise class that will give what you're asking about, study skills, how to take notes, how to read a book, how to do a calendar. Even last night we talked about just sitting down and knowing when your Spanish papers due or whatever. But it really is going to help if all of you in your classes, right, stress the same thing. Because if one person is saying, like, you can turn in all this late work and you don't have to study until, I don't think anyone says that. But if we're all sending that same message, I think it's really going to get across to our students to say, hey, there is a way to study, there is a way to take notes. You have to be responsible. If you don't do that, you might not pass the class. Now, can I throw it back out? Is it because it's like what you teach, anatomy and physiology? Because I know for years everyone has said that that's a hard class. Do you think it's like the students come into it with this fear because they know it's going to be so hard to pass the class? What's going on there?
Students definitely come with fear. I did have as a student that fear. I understand that. The first day I just break them off, just make them not be scared in my class, just communicate and come to me. I told them last night, my class reached almost 8 p.m. I told them, if you have any questions, I'm one of those teachers going to stay here a couple hours answering your questions. Just ask me. But don't let this become like a heavy load on your shoulders. Then come back 2 months later when the program is almost done. And that time you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Just take care of it from the beginning. They do have some stress of like having common jobs, having this course together. I asked them if you can drop some of the jobs, just maybe want to. Even I had a single mom last year, she was very upset about the situation. She had 3 jobs. I asked her if you can drop 1 job, even if you go for on welfare for a couple months, but just get your A's here, then you can go to a good university. She did, and she got a good grade, and she went to Sacramento University.
Wow.
So there are ways, they just need to communicate. And we used to give extra credit when I was in American River College, extra credit for students who go to those classes to teach them how to study. Just extra credit. If each faculty can give like one extra credit, ask them, go to your classes to learn what to do.
Yeah.
I think it's a good suggestion. They can learn more.
Do you find that the tricky thing is, like for me, and I know a lot of you do this in your classes, but for me, if I'm teaching, not the Promise class, but an academic class, I'm like, I have to cover 11 weeks of content. So how much time can I really spend doing the study skills, right? It takes time, and you probably ideally it's like the student should do that him or herself on their own. But if they're not, like, how much time can you take in one of our classes to do refreshers on study skills and how to study for your math test or your Spanish test? I find like that can be a challenge.
For that half a unit class, I have experience from American college. They used to do 30 minutes once a week before starting the class.
Right.
Go over all the previous exams and find out what they did. Then they had to fill out a form and write down what was the problem, why they were not able to answer this specific question.
Sara?
I would say, like, I'm starting my 15th year here, and so I feel like I don't think I've seen everything, but I think I've seen a lot of things. It's different kind of students' issues, and so I think I don't spend a lot of time in class, but I do spend time in class asking students, how are you going to study for this test? Sometimes I get completely blank stares, like I'm asking them something they've never, like, not even in Spanish or English, right? Different language entirely. So I think what we need to realize is that some students have absolutely no idea. And so sometimes I say, okay, at the break, we give them breaks. If you don't know, talk to the person next to you. Ask them how you're going to memorize the vocabulary or learn the grammar, or, are you going to meet with someone else? Or I'll oftentimes look at them, how do you learn? Again, they'll say, I don't know. I said, well, you're going to be a much more successful college student, and I don't think that takes that long. I wouldn't say I do it every class, but I definitely talk to them about test anxiety, to say that's a real thing, and so I try to create that atmosphere like you do, Behnaz, to say it's real, and everybody learns in a different way, and then I'll give them examples of how I learned. Like, this is what I would do this day. This is what I would do if I were going to take the test. And again, I don't think that takes, I don't spend hours on this, but I do consciously take time in class because I think so many of our students haven't been successful before coming into college for the first time, especially in a Spanish 101 class. I'm sure math is, again, there's that fear in language and math and anatomy and physiology that is real. And I think that as an instructor, it is kind of part of our job. Because not every student is a promise student, unfortunately, yet. But these promise students are going to get much more wraparound service from the college. But a lot, I know I asked yesterday how many students in my class were promise students, and not one raised their hand.
Yeah.
So they're not in your class, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's going to be a lag, so maybe 2 years down the road we'll cover all the students, but in the meantime, it's like maybe you have to stress that a little more, because if they're not in promise, they're not going to take that class. Go ahead.
Could you define a promise student for us?
Sure. So the Promise program, it's kind of like it's a national program, and City University of New York piloted it. They adapted it at Brooklyn Community College, Skyline, and some other California community colleges did. We got a replication grant to cover the cost. Basically what it is you have students sign a contract. The contract requires certain things out of them, a minimum 2.0 GPA, 67% completion rate with their classes. They have to enroll at least 12 units per quarter. Recommended is 15. They have to meet with their Promise counselor, Christy Ellenford, twice a quarter, or twice a month, so one of those will be in our class. They have to attend one event per quarter, so Academy Kickoff, Beth Marinelli, our career counselor, is doing some career training coming up, that will count. They also have to enroll in the Promise class, which is this 2-unit class that Behnaz was talking about that has study skills in it. It's a non-credit class. They have to take that either in the fall quarter or the winter quarter. In return, we give them a bunch of financial compensation. So we cover their entire tuition. I believe we're going to cover summer classes for them as well. We're giving them $100 credit per quarter in the bookstore. And we're giving them with their student ID, their free bus pass anywhere, not done in Carson City, but anywhere in the basin here. And then we're doing these wraparound services as well. We just hired a Promise director, Julie Booth. She's tracking everything, and I have to tell you the amount of tracking required. Like every time after I teach a class that I won, I'll take my attendance sheet. I have to give that to Julie and to Christy, our counselor, because we're constantly making sure that they maintain these benchmarks, whatever those requirements are. If they don't, they're dropped from the program, right? So what CUNY figured out in creating this program is that if you don't have rigor, if you don't have standards, if you don't say, you sign the contract just like any contract, you sign a housing contract, you don't abide by the rules, you're evicted. Well, this is the same thing. Now, we hope that people won't be evicted per se, but that is the plan. So Promise is our first attempt to tie together a lot of things we've done in the past, the Board of Governors, fee waivers. We've done, even quite a few of you here, I think, or at least Larry and Wynn have embedded tutors. So there are things we're doing that's sort of in addition to Promise. So we've identified, I don't have the schedule today, but some purple classes in the schedule. The theory behind Promise is that it's a cohort model. So if you keep your cohorts together, you give them study skills, you give them wraparound skills, eventually their graduation rates will go really high and their retention rates will go really high. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay, and what does a student do to even be recruited into this program? Are they low-functioning high school?
The only deal is they have to be first-time, full-time. So they can't have, if they taught classes, I believe we're allowing, if a student took a class in the summer, we're allowing that. But if they were enrolled full-time last year, they can't qualify. So they have to be new full-time students. And you sign a contract. There isn't an economic standard. It's available for
And
anyone.
we take 90 students to begin, or is that?
It's over 100. I would say in the Promise class, I had 3 classes over pretty close to 100 students. So yeah, we're right there at 100. So the theory is the cohorts will build over time. And then what we're talking about is eventually, if everyone's taking that Promise class, they're hopefully getting the study skills and they're learning about commitment up front, and then they're going to take all of your classes and be successful. Now, of course, we're doing this, crossing our fingers and stuff, because we don't know what's going to happen, right? There's so many variables that are hard to control, and what you raised, I think, initially is like, we don't know the lives of our students. We sometimes do, but if they're working, as you suggested with the student, multiple jobs, how do we manage that? Can you imagine, like, in your own teaching, that you would get to a point with a student and you might say, you need to take some time off, maybe you can't. I mean, in your mind, is there a minimum level of commitment? And if the student is doing too much, would you tell him or her to maybe take a break? Or, I mean, is that controversial?
I don't know if I would.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would, just because I don't know if that's my role. But I think that the student, they need to decide whether they could be successful in your class or not. I mean, that's why we have a withdraw date. That's why we have a drop date.
Yeah.
And and sometimes I've seen students in my history here that have failed out and then come back and done very well at a different time of their life. And I remember when I was a very young instructor, my other instructor that had worked here a long time looked at me, she goes, students have the right to fail. And I remember I had my first student that I gave an F to, and I felt like I lost a week's sleep over it. And I saw him at school one day, and he's like, I'm fine. And I'm like, I am caring more about this than you are. And at that time, I realized, I can give them as much as I can as an instructor, but at the end of the day, I can't change the lives.
Yeah.
I can change lives within the classroom.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did you want to? JD?
What I was going to say is it's a partnership.
Yes,
And
agreed.
anybody who's ever been in a relationship of any kind, of friendship, or dating, marriage, whatever it is, it's a partnership. And that means that both parties have to actually bring something to it. And if one doesn't, it doesn't work. And I don't think we need to go any further than looking at all the myriad of examples. Some relationships are successful and others are not. You can talk about playing music.
Mm-hmm.
But if everyone wants to be in a band, then you got to want to be in a band. You got to show up to practice. If somebody doesn't show up to practice, you don't have a band anymore. And I think that is an analogy that fits here. We have a responsibility to a certain extent, but when college is a choice, you have a responsibility to a certain extent, and we have to be able to meet people where they're at. But you can't make choices for other people, especially when they're adults. And I think that when you start getting into the business of deciding for other people, I wouldn't want someone deciding for me, because I know my life better than anyone.
We were in the Commons Day, Dr. Duerk was doing Constitution Day, and a student came up and asked me a question, and it turned out he wanted to talk to you about taking a poli-sci class, and I liked your response, because he said, should I do it or not? And you said, well, you're an adult, and you have to make the decision if this is the right GE class for you, or if it's anthropology or sociology or psychology or something else. So I like your approach, saying you are an adult.
That's what exactly I told them last night, the first day I introduced. I said, this is a heavy load, and you are adult. You need to decide what you want to do. If you want to be successful in this class, see how you want to manage your own life. You can pick up so many units. Maybe some students they can, maybe some students they can. You are your individual person, you can decide by yourself, see what you want to do, but just let you know in order to get an A in this class, you have to manage your time, your schedule from the beginning.
And I think we can think to the future on that too, to say it starts in college, but then, we need to show up to work. We have to balance our loads.
Right.
We have to understand how to balance our lives as well. So this is just the beginning of realizing how to be an adult and how to be a functioning person in society, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
And if you tell them what to do, then when they fail, they can just blame you as opposed to take the responsibility on themselves and figure out what they did wrong.
I find so last night, and I don't know if it works, because as I get older, I don't know if like you, I'm early 50s now, when I look at my students, I'm like, they look younger than when I was like, I think I started here in my mid-20s or something like that, late 20s. But I try to do this like street cred thing where I say, hey, when I was in college, and last night I told the story about wearing a hairnet and how embarrassing it was for me, because I was doing like not work study, but you sign up for the campus job, and I was slinging mashed potatoes in the door at the cafeteria, and my friends would always come to be like, oh, you have the hairnet on or whatever, but it was how I earned a living, to pay for some of my expenses. My parents helped me with my tuition, which it was state school. It wasn't like community college, but it was pretty cheap. But I try to always use that in class, and I don't know if it works, particularly as I age, and I think, do they really buy it? And then I told them, hey, and when I was at the University of Iowa, I was doing odd jobs, commuting, working at, plastic factories and doing the most menial labor jobs to pay for my education. So for me, I try to tell those stories. Now, whether or not that gives me the credibility and they're like, oh yeah, you've been where I've come from or I am at now.
So
I don't know if that works.
I was a student athlete as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's helped me in the same sense where when we have some of our coyote men or women that are in our classes, I'm able to say, student athlete. Not athlete student, student athlete. And when they'll say something like, would you understand I was traveling? I go, actually I do understand. I was 25 hours on the tennis court when I was in college too, and that made me have to be a better student.
And does it work?
I feel like it does because it doesn't give them the card to say, here's my card. This is what happened to me, sorry. Did you want to ask me something?
I just want to say that the first week of class, I talked to them a lot about how important is willpower and how much willpower takes place in the decision that you're doing. And it's not going to be easy because if it's easy, everybody will do it. So I was like, this is, as JD said, a relationship. It involves commitment, also willpower that you have, because some of them, they don't know that. So, and I said, study a language and learning vocabulary and start talking takes willpower and the decision to make it happen. And I said, this is not just for my class. You can apply this in any aspect of your life. And I said, when you think you're tired, okay, take an hour break, go back and study 2 hours and get done. And then after talking about that, I also say it's so rewarding when you finish in first quarter. Probably, maybe you'll A's, maybe you'll B's, but you're you did it. You finished. And so I said, but to be there, you need to work hard. So that's something that I would like to add.
That's really good.
One of the things I've noticed for my students, just because it's difficult class, I know they adult, they have to make decisions by themselves that they should do that. But sometimes the amount of stress is so much that when they come to my office, they sit down crying, talking about their personal life and pressure. You feel like they got lost into that circle. Yeah. They just keep going a circle, So that's the time I just give some example of my own life. Say when I was your age, what I did, what you can do, and also refer them to a counselor here to go talk to a counselor and a little release the stress. And always I tell my students, remember, when you fall down, You climb that mountain again, stand up, keep going. Because this going, and last night I told them, you're going to come up, stand up, you're going to fall down again. I'm going to hold your hand, say, keep going, climb again. And you can do this to the end of the year. And I remember I had a student last year, many times came to me asking me a bargain and asking me to take some of the part of the lecture out. And I didn't, and she was very upset. But at the end of the year, she came to me, she said, I just want to tell you thank you for pushing us. It was a very helpful class. So they get into that stress, they feeling like falling down, but just making sure that they understand that we are with them, we're holding their hands, we are not going helping them, we are not going to make a decision for them. We are holding their hands, help them to move forward.
Yeah, no, Larry, you want to jump in?
One thing that I do in the first week is time for reality check. And I find a lot of instructors lighten up the first week because it's the first week. I'm the opposite. I would much rather them drop the class in the first week than drop the class in the 8th week because they have time.
Yeah.
So I make sure that first week is as hard as an interim week or a project week or any of the other weeks of the class. So that they get reality check in those first 3 days. They got a test on Friday. They got homework due tomorrow. But I let them know, hey, this is how it's going to be every week. It's not going to get harder. It's not going to get easier. And make the decision. If you can make it and have the time to do it, then go ahead. But if you don't, then maybe you need to think about taking it when you do have the time.
And does that work? Do you think it's successful?
Yeah, I lose a lot of students that first week.
Okay.
But then they come back the next quarter,
yeah,
and they pass. So I should lose them the first week because you don't want to lose them after 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Because then they put in a lot of work and then don't get through the class and kind of waste a good time.
I just say I'm guilty of. I'm not teaching an academic class now, but when I taught academic classes, I was totally guilty of that. Where, unlike you, I would go really light in the first week. Hey, here's the syllabus and do something fun. And then they get to, not quite midterm, but maybe their first quiz or writing assignment. And then you got some lucks like, oh, I thought it was going to be so easy because the first week was light and you know the syllabus. So I like your approach, but I wonder, like, would that fly in social science? You know what I mean? Because like certain disciplines, math, it's like, it's going to be the hardest. So I wonder if that would have a different effect in social science because students think, oh, it's going to be a little lighter because you're talking about people, which is not the case, social scientists in the room, right? But so I wonder, your approach is really interesting to me because, like, I like your reality approach, but then could we all do that and get away with it? I don't know. It's hypothetical.
I do the same.
You do the same thing?
I told them how heavy this is, and like next week they will have a quiz.
One thing that's a little different between, sciences and math and social sciences, which, maybe part of the reason is that math and science has just so much more prerequisite material, and the foundation, is critical. Like Larry's calculus class, how many prerequisites are there? Like 7 or 8?
Yeah, it depends where you start.
If you start, where the average community college student starts in math, you probably have like 7 or 8 math classes that you need to take, and the same is true with biology. For more advanced biology, because it's a language, you need to have earlier biology.
Language has prerequisites.
Yeah, so I would say that it's similar if you're getting to like a building class, like a 103, where you're hitting the day one, they should know what they're doing. Right. But in a 101, I'm agreeing with Scott, I definitely don't come in, especially if they've never learned a language, and it's been something that most of them have had. If they have had an experience, it probably wasn't a good one. Then it could be the same as math, and I asked that the first day too. Who's taken Spanish? How was it? Terrible, they would say. Right? I was like, well, that is such a shame. That will not be your experience in this class. But in 103, you're there. Come on in. We're going to start out the game.
You don't have prerequisites. You don't have prerequisites in history, poli sci.
So how do you start?
So how do you start?
Classes?
I would say, we have assignments due. We're reading Thomas Hobbes for Thursday in political theory.
That's heavy.
And that's pretty, probably most people have never read anything like that before. But it's setting you up for what we're going to do next. In order to understand these people, you can read Plato or whatever, it's not easy reading. So I think it's important to start like that immediately. But history's a little different, right? Because when you're reading this narrative, there's an assignment due for tomorrow, but it's a little bit different of an assignment. I do think that it's important to have assignments closer to the beginning of the quarter so people get a better sense as to what the course is like. I also wanted to add too, 2 points. One, with courses like anatomy and physiology, if these folks are going to go on to become nurses or something, well, we need the best people possible becoming nurses or going into the medical field. So they should figure that out pretty quickly if it's for them or not. The other point we were talking about earlier is that, when I was in secondary education, the principal I worked for would always make reference to the students as this monolith, and they simply aren't. Mm-hmm. And one year we had this girl, Carrie, go to Harvard, and we had this guy, Matt, go to county jail. Mm-hmm. So it's like everybody is in between on a continuum. And so the point I just want to make here is people mature at different rates at different points in time, and some people never do at all. You meet them in middle age, and you're kind of wondering how they got this far. But the point is, it's like
some people become president of the United States.
I'm not going to go there, but the idea is like I think as educators we have this tendency to be like, well, you want to be thinking at this level, performing at this level at a certain age. Well, anybody who's taught at a community college knows that there are people who come back in their 30s, 40s, and 50s because they went the blue collar route, and then all of a sudden they realize, and my uncle who worked for Ford, I love my Uncle Mike, he's a great guy, but according to my dad and also talking to my uncle himself, he took a shot at college 3 times and it was never for him, and he ended up working for Ford for decades in Cleveland, Ohio, and he did just fine. So I think that those are the conversations that we have to have, and just be honest that maybe it's for some people and not for others, but we have a tendency to approach it like it's for everybody, and if you don't do this, of course it can open up more opportunities. I want a society of more highly educated people, but at the same time, I think forcing it on people, it seems antithetical to who we are as a people in this society. Yeah. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. No, really good points. I'm just trying to process.
Sorry.
Responsibility, right? Really taking responsibility for your education. And if you're not ready, you can maybe come back later.
You gotta be invested.
Yeah, investment.
Beginning of my quarter, before the first exam, I get about 6-7 papers coming from DRC that these students need more time to take their exams at the library. And it's kind of, I'm thinking about these students are going to medical fields. And imagine most of my students becoming nursing program or health-related jobs. So how much we can go further with this? I mean, a nurse has to be very fast, has to do the job fast. We don't want a patient or a nurse who is very slow ones take time to give you medicine. So how much the college is going to go for this? I don't know the boundary,
Yeah.
So, but I want to make sure these students can do the job in future. I don't know. I would like to include all of the students, but then at the same time, I have this question in my mind. This student cannot handle my test for 2 hours, 1 hour and a half. The questions are not too hard, too easy, just medium level. And she or he needs 2 more hours at the library, and she's looking for nursing. What can she do in future?
But you never know. I don't think that's really our job to figure that out, I think our job is to try to help our students be as successful as they can in our class. Or help them, but if they're not, right? And then maybe in the future, if they pass the class, they end up not going into nursing. They end up going to medical billing, or they end up going into something different that's maybe related. But to me, it's like, yes, I care about their future, but I also just, I think our job is right now. That's kind of, what can we do? You've seen, it seems to me, you've taken so much on the students' problems, and that's such a caring way to approach it. But to me, maybe I started out with that a little bit more, but I think as I've gone through, it's realized I can't really change that for them. I can't really change that for them. I can help them in my class. I can help them to become a better student. I can help them to learn how to live in this atmosphere, but I don't know if I can do more than that. I had some interesting situations last quarter or last year. So some students that, like you were talking about maturity, that really like within 1 year, this one student was like a completely different person from 101 to 103. And I saw him yesterday, and he came up to me and he said, "You'd be so proud of me. I enrolled in Introduction to Theater, and I have actually no anxiety and no stage fright now after the whole taking your 3 Spanish classes." I said, "That's because you had to do it in Spanish. Now in English it's so easy." But I think that was just his time that he was ready to mature. And I think that's what the students, hopefully by the time they get to the career, they've learned to be in this world in a more confident way. And if they have disability, they're able to use their disability and make sure that that's less hindering for them.
And just a little, and by the way, hello to the 2 folks out there watching this on our livecast. So if you have any questions that come up, please shoot them through there. I'll try phone and try to answer those. But a little plug, I just saw Beth Marinelli today, and she was saying, hey, Kelly Breiner, our new DRC faculty member, we're doing some class presentations, and we really want to do a video to share. I'm looking at Treva Thomas, our DE coordinator. We want to share these with our online faculty. Because again, those of you teaching for us online, we want you to have that DRC information. But I think what we're raising is like some of the hardest stuff, because I'm not trained, I always think I'm not trained in DRC, disability studies, I'm not trained as a counselor. So when these life issues come up, I've had students in classes, we probably all have, with serious addictions or psychological problems. I always try to refer them, but I'll tell you, so I think teaching community college for a while, and you think like, if I could go back in time, I would have taken a counseling class, a class on disability, because some of the things that we're asked to deal with, right? And then fortunately, we have a specialist, and Kelly, it's exciting to have her because she like brings a new a set of experiences to the job. So I think it's like she's going to revitalize a lot of things. But if we didn't have that link to counseling and to disability counseling, I don't know what we would do. And for me, the Promise program, one of the best things it's doing is linking instruction and counseling and student services. And I just think like for too long, those have been like in separate worlds. And this is what you're talking about. Like if you ever have an issue, and obviously Kelly will take some time to get going. It's second day of classes, and she just started this summer. But I think that's where we can have some collaboration. And as we're making our lists, mental or real lists here, in the future, if that comes up, we can schedule one of these and have Kelly or Tracy or someone from counseling come in and really target these issues if we're discovering that it's a concern. Kind of like we've talked about with campus safety, and I know that's being discussed literally today on campus. So I think this is the important thing, is if like a bunch of us are having these issues in our classes, let's schedule a workshop on that topic, because we might be able to deal with it better collectively, those concerns.
There has
I have
to
a way
be
of silencing the crowd.
There has to be a literature out there on some of these
Yeah.
to think that
Yeah.
what are the best practices that you can implement in order to maximize the likelihood people are going to do well. And I will add this: for the first time, like teaching online here, you're a person. I've done a syllabus quiz in the past, not since I've been here when I was teaching in Arizona, and I've added a new component to the syllabus quiz where they have to explain to me, like the paragraph form, explain to me what your approach to this course is going to be, your preparation. So I'm interested to read that at the end of the week.
I love that.
So I will see what they have to say.
Like a study plan?
Yeah, like what is your, if it's not paragraph, outline, whatever, what do you plan to do in order to be successful here?
Yeah.
So if they haven't thought about it, this is not our opportunity to think about it. Otherwise, who knows, right?
I don't know.
I oftentimes ask them why they want to take the class too, because I feel like that's helped me serve me in coming around like mid-quarter or 3/4 of the way through the quarter, where you're like, I'm going to go back and look at that and say, where are you going? What happened to you? And remember, you wanted to fill in the blank, or you wanted to major in this, or, So I think that is a really good tactic to try to, motivate them when they need the motivation.
Yeah.
That was nice.
What is the student safety need? The safety
Oh, so if you, so student safety, I guess the best way to talk about it globally. So yesterday I sent out a message. We recently had a faculty meeting during convocation, full-time faculty. And, a few faculty brought up concerns about campus safety. So I would say very generally it involves situations where a student in a class maybe has some behavioral issues, and they say something that is potentially threatening, talking about something that doesn't seem quite right, other students or instructors or embedded tutors in the class feel uncomfortable. You also have situations, and I'm looking at Treva again with DE, because in DE classes, and I can say this having taught so many years DE, you have maybe not threatening situations, but students who go off topic or who say things that are offensive to other students. So because of that information communicated last week during our convocation, I sent a very professional email to our senior leadership team and our president, and they're in there, I think today, Tuesday, although I think sometimes on Thursdays. No, it's today. They're in their senior leadership meeting today, and I think they're discussing it. So the email specifically, if you're on the part-time list, you received it yesterday, also on the full-time list, and it just basically said, we would like to have more dialogue and conversation on campus, and I included a list of ideas, and it ranged everything from trainings for our classes, our labs, if a student does something inappropriate, to software that would allow us to track incidents on campus, and while still protecting due process and confidentiality of our students. So it's sort of in a holding pattern, but I think there's impetus because a lot of this is anecdotal. We hear different things, but I would say I've heard at least from 15 faculty, 10 to 15, either part-time or full-time. And in some cases, it's maybe the same student, or it's maybe mostly online, or it's a situation in a lab where there's some safety issues. So it's everything under the sun. Basically, if something happens in your class and it's inappropriate, the range of inappropriate could be, someone says something weird and offensive to someone makes a threat or something like that. So I think collectively, those of you who can speak at the meeting with the chancellor could correct me, but I think we're asking for more clarification and process from the administration. Is that someone else? I don't know. Treva?
Well, and just a panic. Well, also we're talking about how the students feel some type of freedom to be abusive in the online environment. Personal attacks on the instructors, very inappropriate language. There's a lot that's happening that how much does, and then we're finding it again that sometimes it is the same student who has, this is happening in multiple classes online, that they've verbally attacked their instructors, always confrontational, that just really disrupting the learning environment. And what is the faculty member? Right. How much what protection do you have, and how long do you have to put up with that? I mean, in a face-to-face class, you can even ask the students, I'm asking to leave until, you can, online, it's hurts the focus.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
We've seen a bit of that in the social sciences specifically, because of the content. Mm-hmm. And there's been, in the last year I've been here, and even one of my classes, there was a person who was essentially denigrating the discipline and telling people they're all hacks, what we do for a living. Yeah. Very disrespectful, because it doesn't coincide with their political ideology or something.
Right. I was joking with Larry last night as we were walking out in the evening after class, and I said, probably in math, it's not going to come up as much. But in social science, the minute you talk about politics or the minute you talk about whatever, gender, everybody, potentially comes out of the woodwork. And in the DE class, I feel like, because it's asynchronous, sometimes, I remember there was a situation, and if it had been a face-to-face class, I would have immediately intervened and been you can't. It was an older male student who was saying that the young female students in the class were stupid because of their age and their gender. And it's like, in a face-to-face class, you can stop that immediately, but in DE, because it's asynchronous, it's like, you log in the next morning, it's like, let that happen overnight, because you could post 24 hours a day. So I feel like there are some challenges, unique to DE as well, because people are so used to that. I get on social media and say whatever I want, and I'm guilty of that on my Facebook. I post stuff about Trump or whatever, but I feel like in a class is not social media, and sometimes I think we have to make that distinction.
So do you, especially in social science, I would imagine we see it more prevalent, but do you make them sign a contract or consent, or not a contract, but is it stated so clearly in your syllabus of what is tolerated in the class and what is not? Or, is that it's a fuzzy line still?
It is, but it's fuzzy. I always say, if it's hate speech, if it's homophobic, if it's sexist, if it's racist, if it's against.
And then who decides what that is?
But then who decides, and then
how do they play with the whole freedom of speech?
Yeah, freedom of speech. Yes.
Now we're in the era of every opinion matters.
Yeah.
You know, like, because you have
Except
it,
for the
therefore
wrong
you.
ones.
Well, it's just like, it's the idea of, well, I guess from our standpoint, it's like what's the factual basis for the claim that you're
We're
making?
going to end in about 2 or 3 minutes. Just so you know.
It's like, what's the factual
Yeah.
basis for the claim that you're making? And a lot of people don't
Yeah.
even do that. They just insult people.
Right.
And that to me is like, equates to abuse.
Yeah.
And no one's entitled to abuse people. They ought to just be removed.
Yeah.
So should we go back to the concluding?
Yeah, let's go to concluding thoughts. And again, we'll do more of these. So, I mean, we kind of covered the gambit, or not all the issues, but it seems like a lot of issues we covered today. Anything else, like closing ideas you have before we end, or what you'd like to talk about next?
I guess, one thing that I try and think of is the first week, this is kind of the first, chance you're meeting students and, how first impressions can kind of last, is to try and engage as many students as possible.
Great idea. Okay, that's great. Well, let's close on that point, really positive note. And thank you all, the 2 of you out there, for participating virtually. Thank you to all of you here. We'll do this again. All right.
Thank you, Scott.